What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, Kyle? I'm so excited to get into this Texas Motor Speedway race this weekend and start talking about some of our favorites. As we've been doing this more and more often, NASCAR is becoming more and more fun for me to watch.
Absolutely. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I had a real sweat on Sunday. Kurt Busch was as much as like second, like right at the end. Then all of a sudden he was 2 laps down, and then he was back in the top 5 and cashed a ticket for me. So obviously I was very happy to see that. I'm pulling up right now to see if any of our viewers picked the right ones. No, but it was nice to get a couple comments. So if you guys like a driver for this weekend, if you like a top 5, you like a top 10, drop it in the comments. Let us know if you make the right call. We'll give you a shout out on the show and go from there. But yeah, it was a wild ride. Eric Almirola was my guy, and he was killing it for the first couple stages, and then not so much in stage 3, and kind of just went away. And and that really is something that happens, and it's kind of frustrating because you'll feel really good about picking driver or backing a driver who's dominating through the first 2 stages, and that really doesn't matter. I mean, obviously it's nice if they do well. That usually means good things are coming, but as long as they finish where they were supposed to, that's what's most key. So yeah, we didn't do a show for the All-Star event, which I don't know. It was okay. It was kind of cool to see some of the unique things. Obviously, NASCAR's taking advantage of their time in the sun to kind of shine a little bit and see what they can do and garner some new fans. And obviously, things like betting and DFS definitely help with that as well. But let's dive in. Let's talk the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. And we'll start where we always do. Let's go inside 10-1, and let's talk about our top options. And Brian, he's 3-1 this week. He's minus 125 to be a top 3, and top 5 and top 10 lines haven't come out yet because of that All-Star race. So we're going off of just kind of those lines, and Brian and I will try and tweet out some of our favorite 5s and 10s. We'll give you the guys we like and where we're targeting them, and you can kind of look on your book when those numbers come out. But Harvick's won 3 of the last 5. In the other 2, he's 2nd and 8th. So that's a pretty good run.
Yeah, no kidding. He's I think he's clearly the favorite this week. And I mean, the odds like mirror that, but I mean, just with how good he's been running, he is head and shoulders above anybody else right now. He's the Patrick Mahomes to everybody else's, like Andy Dalton or, Zach Mettenberger.
Zach Mettenberger.
Since you're wearing a Titans hat.
Yeah, Harvick's been great, and like he's been dominant and looks amazing, and obviously it's a place where he's done well. But if you look at his history, 4th, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 8th, 1st, not 1st this week. Is that should we keep the trend going and look elsewhere? Because I mean, if history repeats itself, he'll finish probably in the top 5, maybe in the top 10. And if you want to back him at minus 125 for a top 3, like I think it's a good way to look.
I think that's probably the play to go, especially when the 2 guys we talked about last week who had similar trends like that with good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. They both hit the trending scenario with Kurt Busch having a good finish and Kyle Busch actually falling back in the pack late in the race and having a not as good a finish as we thought he would have.
Right. So if we're going to fade Harvick a little bit, like obviously he's still highly, let's start with Mr. Chase Elliott at 7-1.
Yeah. He's a guy who over the last few races here, he hasn't really ran as well as what he was in the middle of the season, where he was consistently finishing in the top 10 minus a crash at Darlington and minus a disappointing finish at Bristol, which on yesterday we saw him race at Bristol in the All-Star race, and he won it while leading almost the entirety of the race. So, that might have been a fluke there. So he could have had a string of races where he had a top 10 in 6 consecutive leading up to Talladega, where we saw him kind of disappoint. And then Pocono, he didn't do well. And then the Sunday race, top 5, Indianapolis, 11th. Last week, not as well, but he's a driver who he's kind of propelled himself into that like top echelon of drivers in NASCAR. And he's a guy that I like at the 7-1 odds to potentially continue that streak that he started yesterday and creep up into potentially winning at a track where, he's in the 2 of the last 3 here. He's finished in the top 12. So he's doing really well. 7-1 odds. I like that. It's hard for me to back a guy like Harvick at 3-1 to win a race, especially. Yeah. I'd prefer to go the -125 top 3 with him. But if we're looking in that, top 10 guys for winning the race, it's Chase Elliott. Even though none of us have, either of us have been able to pick the winner out of this group so far.
Yeah. I like Elliott too. I kind of like him for a top 3, he's plus 200. I like that. Gives you a little bit of wiggle room. I'm going to go with another guy. This guy's just outside the 10-1 range, but I think makes a ton of sense. It's Joey Logano. Things have not been going well. He's got one top 10 over his last 6. But before that, he was actually running all right. If you go look at his top 15 numbers, or his last 15 races, he's got 2 top 5s, 6 top 10. So a lot of that production came before the last 6 races. So I'm hoping he can kind of get back where he needs to be. If you look at his history at this track, he's done really well. 7 of his last 8 races at the track have had a top 7 finish. 5 of those were top 5s. Joey Logano's a guy I like. 11-1. He has some of the best track history, along with Harvick and along with one other guy that I'm going to mention in a bit. In terms of just really producing at this track, in terms of doing really, really well. So I like him. He's another guy, you can get him at 3-1 for a top 3 finish, probably plus 150, 175 for a top 5. I like both of those quite a bit as well, if you don't want to go with the outright. And that's kind of a great way to consistently make money on NASCAR, because as we kind of talked about before, outside of a crash or something going wrong with the car, typically guys that do really well at certain tracks have a history and continually back that up for a reason. So when you dive into the numbers, you dive into the stats, it really does paint a picture of which guys you should be targeting each and every week.
Yeah, Joey Logano was a guy, you and I, we did it again prior to starting this. Both of us were on board with Joey Logano. Now, looking a little bit deeper into his career statistics and career numbers, Logano's not really a guy that I'm probably going to be wagering on to win races. As looking at his career, he's only had more than 3 victories in a season twice since 2008. And, the last 2 years, he has 3 and 2 victories, while his bread and butter is finishing top 5, top 10. So if you can get him, a driver like this, at a decent number with plus money, at a top 5 finish at a track that he's done really well at, I think that's kind of the route that you go with a guy like him, because he doesn't seem to be that killer dog that Harvick or Denny Hamlin or even Jimmy Johnson back in his heyday was, where they're not afraid to bump people and crash people out to win the race.
Yep. He's basically the Matt Kuchar for those that follow the PGA. He's consistently top 5, top 10, makes all kinds of money, but in terms of winning events, doesn't do that quite as much. Let's do what we always do though, Brian, because we like to dive deeper. We like to find value. And we like to go with a little bit longer payout. So let's start with your favorite guy, and that's Mr. William Byron, who's currently 33-1.
Yeah, I'll definitely be placing a small five spot on him to win this race. For a good $1.65. That'd be a nice take home on that. But he only has 4 races here at Texas. He's finished in the top 10 twice. His worst finish is 17th. So, I mean, those aren't great numbers, but for a guy that's, you're getting 33-1 odds, like for that kind of future bet. I love that. And looking into what he's done so far in 2020, his last 10 races, he has 8 top 15s. And if you look at the entirety of this season, I know this is getting a little crazy here, but if you take away the 4 races in which he didn't finish the entire race, which he probably crashed or he had some sort of issues, his average finish is 12th. So he's going to be a guy that I'm going to be betting really heavy to finish top 10 once those numbers come out, because it's more than likely going to be plus money. And I feel pretty confident that he is a guy that is going to give you a nice return and build that bankroll up to go a little bit more aggressive on, the favorites and bet more on them.
Yep. I like that call. Byron's a guy I like as well this week. He's 8-1 for top 3s, probably 4 or 5-1 for top 5, and then like you said, plus money, plus 175, 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 or so,
which would be great. Like I'm always happy to do that. I'd rather throw a little bit more money down on a bet that gives me more wiggle room and still provides a nice payday. Speaking of wiggle rooms and providing paydays, let's go back to our boy. It's Eric Jones again. We just got to do it. 25-1. I like the outright on him, actually, especially if you're digging deep. Obviously, last Sunday, if you would have bet, I wasn't it Cole. I want to say Cole Custer won.
Cole Custer, yep.
The payday on that outright, like, woo, that would have been real nice.
Yes.
So I don't know that we'll get that this week, but Eric Jones has really done really well. 5 straight top 10s at Texas. 3 straight 4th place finishes. So last year he was 10th, but the 3 races before that he finished 4th. So 3 straight top 5 finishes. So I'm going to be targeting Eric Jones for top 5, potentially top 3, and then outright. Like, you're getting 6-1 on a top 3 finish. Like, when you're considering Kevin Harvick for an outright is 3-1. When you're considering Kyle Busch for an outright is 6-1. Denny Hamlin 6-1. Being able to get top 3, top 5 at basically the same payout, I'm all about that. Like, give me that extra wiggle room. Obviously, they're not as the same class of drivers. That's why you're getting the better numbers. But, a lot of stuff can happen. Guys can wreck. Guys can have car issues. And as long as they're in contention, I mean, they could absolutely make that payday worthwhile. So I like him a lot this week. And if we want to go real deep, Brian, because I we like to.
Yes.
This is a name you've mentioned before, and we kind of laid out the plan for him. But Daniel Suarez is 500-1. Like I said,
it didn't pan out to me, but I mean, shit, for 500-1,
we're not probably getting another Cole Custer. Like, we're probably, I can almost guarantee you. And Suarez is starting 37th, but he's 100-1 just for a top 3. So that means he's probably going to be like 40-1 for a top 5, and then maybe 15 or 20-1 for a top 10. And if you look at his history at this track, his last 2 races have resulted in back-to-back 3rd place finishes. So there's your top 3 right there. Obviously, in those races, he started in the top 10. So it's a lot easier to stay there when you start there. This time he's starting 37th, which is not great. But I think
we've seen it before. Guys move up from the back of the pack. As long as they
and
get a good start.
If he can move up a little bit at a time, by the stage 1, kind of end up in the teens. After stage 2, kind of be near that top 10. And if you get a top 10 ticket on him, like, it's gonna pay better than like half of the top half of the grid. Like, you're gonna be killing it. So I like that a lot. Suarez is 500-1 for a reason. So don't go putting your life savings on his top 10. But if you can back him and get a nice payday on a guy that I think obviously has a comfort at this track, as we've mentioned, is a guy that typically does better. This year has not gone well for him. That's why he's starting where he's starting. Just been kind of rough in general. But I like his potential this week. And if you're playing DFS, like, he would be a guy that I would be targeting, because I think he's going to pass cars. I think he's going to have a nice finishing position. And potentially be a really a high point earner. So I like that. But Brian, let's end as we always do. Let's talk our best bets. Who is your best bet for this week?
So we don't have the number right now, but I'm going William Byron, top 10, whatever that may be. I will be hammering that as soon as I see that line come out. I will be hammering that.
Yep. I bet it's at or near 2-1. I like that call quite a bit. I'm gonna back Eric Jones. He's 25-1. I'm gonna back him for a top 5. Last week he was 25-1 and was about, I believe, 3-1 for a top 5 finish. So I'm assuming he'll be right in that range again this week. I think that's a great way to look. Obviously, his history at the track, and he's starting near the front. So I think he can. I think he can get out in clean air, and I think he can run well, and finish kind of in that top 5 range, top 3 to top 5. And I don't hate taking a fraction of your bet and throwing it on the outright, because at 25-1, $10 wins you 250. Like that's a nice ROI. So
that's just to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more. That's exactly what I did last week with Kurt Busch. I did a pretty good bet on him, top 5, and then win a little bit less. And I also piggybacked that with a potential victory. I know he finished 5th, so I got so lucky there. But I mean, you're going to turn out a winner, and you're either going to be happy or extremely happy with the result.
Well, and the thing is, I bet 3 guys last week for top 5 finishes. Only one of them hit, and I still made money. Like, obviously, it wasn't. I would have liked to hit 2 of them. I like to, some of the matchups. You can look at some of the group numbers. Like Eric Jones is in a group with a bunch of guys that I think he'll dominate, and he's plus 310 over on Bovada. So there's different ways to attack it as well. Like you can look at different drivers he's paired with. You can look at some of the head-to-heads. You can do that as well. And obviously those come out much closer to race time. But if you really like a driver, that is a great way to kind of go into it. Because even if they finish 7th, as long as they're ahead of the rest of their group, you're making nice money on them. So that's another way to look. But yeah, Eric Jones, William Byron. I mean, I feel like this has been a couple of the guys we've really targeted over a couple different podcasts, but so far so good. So make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the pod. Let us know in the comments who your favorite drivers, what your best bets are for this week. Do you got to like a guy for top 5, top 10? You can head over to DraftKings Sportsbook or FanDuel or wherever you happen to place your wagers. Throw down the lines you like and let us know. And if you hit some winners, we'll shout you out next week on the pod. But for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Enjoy the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500.